please stand and say the pledge of allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is roll call. Jan, Maddie, please.
Joe Dolby,
Here.
Jim Garrison,
Here.
Lloyd Horton,
Here.
Nancy Manson, Rory Pagan,
Here.
Tom Phillips, Tom Steering,
Here.
Paul Nygren. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, approval of the agenda as it was sent out, presented.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any additions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item, approval of the planning and zoning minutes from the May 21st, 2024 meeting. Those were also sent out in your emails.
I move we approve those minutes as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the planning and zoning meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, number 3, approval of the public hearing minutes from May 21st on a variance request at 22817 East Martin Lake Drive.
I move we approve those minutes as written.
Moved and seconded by Jim. Any additions or corrections? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item, approval of the public hearing minutes on the code of ordinances, different ordinances that they were amending.
Make a motion, we approve the public hearing minutes for the code of ordinances as written.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to old business. Discuss and act on the variance application at 22718 East Martin Lake Drive. We continued it until this meeting because the applicants were not here. Are the applicants here tonight? Okay. All right. And there was questions about putting the septic across the road versus sealed tank. Would you like to address that, please, and step up to the mic, give your name?
Hi, Chris Dyan, one of the applicants for the property. I did speak with the excavating company, Casper's, and I got somebody, who I hand this to.
Give it to Susan here.
What it is, it's a response from the excavator, signed copy, and photos that I took from the location. But essentially, the excavator said by putting the tank across the lot, the tank would be just too deep. You can't do it, and it's just a tank application. So that was his response for, that was his response, that, additional, I don't know how many feet it is across the road, but that was something he looked at. I know there's a setback on either side, so it's 100 feet, just due to the slope. The tank would be way too deep in the ground. I also included 2 photos, standing right on the lot line facing south and then pivoting on either side of my neighbors, showing where their tanks are. And you can see the tank covers on the west and east properties. I don't know the addresses off the top of my head, but what we're requesting is that for a tank placement similar to our neighbors, no field at the moment. And a field would have to go across the road. The state, I've worked with the state, Minnesota Department of Health, and they said, the only place on the lot could be there just due to the proximity to the well heads of the neighbors on either side and the well on the existing property. And so they've already pre-approved, we submitted a variance with the state MDH, they approved it. They did inspect it and come out, I worked with their representative, their aquatics experts, and also worked with Susan, and a few others at Linwood, trying to do this. My father started this process a number of years ago, and it's pretty complex. It's a small lot width-wise, and there's not a, older property, late sixties, I guess. So it was done, the current tank is sort of on the east side of the house near the lake. I talked to Anoka, they'd love to get rid of the tank because it's an open bottom tank. So, and that tank is close to the well. And we'd like to rectify it, but I don't know. And this is like the only solution we can come up with. And would require the variance that we're requesting to be right inside the lot line. Because if you move the tank further toward the lake, then you're encroaching on the lake and the well, the existing well on that side. So that's the reason for replacing the tank where it is. I'll take any questions and then
Jim?
You said an open bottom tank, so that means that the septic is going right into the ground?
The current tank?
Yes.
Yeah, the current tank's an open bottom tank.
And you will be removing that?
Yeah, that's definitely part of the state law.
I would think what you're doing is very advantageous because that's right on the lake. And an open bottom tank would eventually get into the water. So,
Yeah.
so I would think that what you're doing is much better.
Thank you. My father bought it, and that's the way the property came with.
Sure.
He was not the original owner of the property, so they didn't know. They tried to
Sure.
vacuum it out or whatever, and there's like, there's nothing in there.
The lot is very small, like we said, and so what you're proposing to me is a big improvement.
Any other questions on the zoning members? Is there a schedule of pumping, or when the alarm goes off, you call the pumper? Is that what it is? I don't know.
Oh, I mean, with the tank, yeah, there would be. I believe that's what would be for the new tank, old tank. As I mentioned, they came out and the person who does it just laughed. There's nothing, I mean, not laughed, but there's nothing in the tank to pump out. And we don't use it, we try to reduce the impact, but little kids and things of that nature.
Well, the question was on the setback request, zero setback on the road or minimal setback. And it's a sealed tank to be pumped. It's a good resolution to a problem. Yes, sir.
The state also wants us to pressure test the lines as part of the install. That may be the normal part of it, but we're gonna pressure test from the new tank all the way back to the left inside the property, so there's no leakage into the nearby wells.
Any other questions? Is there a motion for a recommendation?
I so move, I'm making a motion to recommend the holding tank he's proposing to put in.
Already seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Want that for county records or even?
We don't need it.
Thank you.
The next item, chicken duck ordinance revisited. Planning Commission went through this with the public hearing last month. We've worked on it since March and whatever on trying to do this. I say we, but Lloyd Horton has had the biggest impact on putting together this ordinance. I thought it came together pretty good, but there was questions at the town board level. The questions have come out on our emails and whatever. Lloyd Horton has responded to that and put amendments into our notes suggesting what we can do to resolve things. I guess, I don't know, I'm gonna turn it over to Lloyd.
Can you guys speak into the microphones a little better? Sorry. Kind of.
Would you like to go through them one at a time with questions the town board had on things, issues they had problems with. I don't know if the audience has a list of things.
Lloyd, this that you sent in just recently was too late to get on, to get on the laptop. Okay, so this is the most recent one, so this is you sent it, and I gave everyone one of those. It's also in the public one.
Is that the one from June 13th?
Yes.
Okay, I did receive that.
Yeah, it was too late to get into the packet, but.
I guess I wish we would have had this much participation at the public hearing that we had a month ago. Because then we could have voiced your concerns and it would have got on the record. And at this point, we're well along with establishing this ordinance. It's a very reasonable proposal that we had in the first place. The town board only had a few concerns and they have been addressed and I believe they'll be satisfactory to most people. Whether they're satisfactory to the board or remains to be seen.
So I'll just start with the first concern, start with the town
1
board.
to 13 or whatever they got there.
So the town board asked to define chickens, hen versus rooster. And I said I have no problem with defining chickens, but I wonder if it is necessary, since roosters are specifically addressed as separate from chickens, when they are restricted in section 30-703 1A2. St. Francis has the following in their code. Note that they don't refer to hens except in the definitions. No other surrounding community that I could find refers to hens. And then I just put in what St. Francis has definitions for the. They define a chicken as a domesticated bird that serves as a source for eggs or meat. Coop means a structure for the keeping of housing of chickens. Hens means a female chicken. Rooster means a male chicken. Run means a fully enclosed covered area attached to a coop where the chickens can roam unsupervised. And I put a note in there that says, we don't have the words hen or run in our code currently. So it's up to the committee if they want to add definitions. And my recommendation is I don't think it was necessary.
Comments from the planning and zoning on that?
I agree, that's pretty common language.
I don't think we can add that. I mean, it's so redundant that a hen is a female chicken. I mean,
The other thing that came up down the line is the chicken duck thing. If this is only to do with chickens, hen versus rooster. And I don't really think we need to define that directly in our ordinance. As you say, the rooster thing was addressed farther down the line, no more than so many roosters. So that's been addressed in the proposed ordinance. Okay, I think.
I did, I don't know if that's in this, but I did go through the latest proposal and removed the words and or, so, because that was causing some confusion, so. Number 2 was address raccoons and deer as well. And I suggested to add a limit of 2 raccoons and 2 deer.
I have a question. Is this regulation just specifically about chickens, or is it about animals? Keeping domesticated animals?
It's not specifically about chickens, but what we were tasked to do was revise the code to include chickens.
So there's already a code on number of animals, different types of animals?
Yeah, very limited. And that just one paragraph mentions deer and raccoons. And it doesn't say anything other than they're allowed, period. So there was concern from the board that there was no limit. What about deer and raccoons? Or, you know, we're gonna limit chickens, but we're not gonna limit deer and raccoons.
What about peacocks then? Do we have to have ordinance on that, or do we have to spell peacocks out?
That comes later.
It's in this proposed ordinance of basically prohibiting, so.
I would think if you're gonna regulate an animal, there should be a number. Like you say, if it's deer, if you're allowed to have deer, somebody shouldn't be able to just have 30, 40 deer.
It says 2.
Right, but that's what he's talking about adding.
That's an arbitrary number that I suggest.
But as of now, there is no number.
That's right.
So people have an
Currently, there is no
unlimited
number.
Microphones.
I say deer, yeah, that's a whole different thing with deer. Raccoons, I guess you can keep whatever pets you want that way. But, the number 2 seems reasonable. If somebody wants to have a couple pet raccoons, that can happen. And pet deer, there's a lot of restrictions that go along with that. I don't know how that would come in. I don't even know why the deer are in there, to be honest with you. We could eliminate the deer, keep the deer. I mean,
I would eliminate the deer, that falls out off the wall. All of it is a special permit.
you gotta get your face to the mic there.
All of them need a special permit, I mean, deer, elk, all of them, so I would just eliminate the deer, cause they have to get a separate permit for them kind of animals anyways.
What does planning and zoning members feel about that? I know there's a lot of restrictions and regulations on fence and deer.
I agree with Rory.
What about the raccoon?
Why have extra redundancy in there? If it's not needed, it shouldn't be.
But it basically comes out of our control anyhow, because DNR controls that type of animal.
So I can go with
Raccoons, that's kind of a different thing. People do have pet raccoons. Or we can eliminate that. And again, what's the feeling of the planning and zoning? It was put in there because you were trying to make it rural friendly, I know, because people like keeping their rural pets and stuff. And that's what this is intended to do here. So. But the one, number 2 on here was address the number of raccoons and deer. So we intend to eliminate the deer. No deer in captivity or no deer in regulation.
I think that's good because you have to have permits for it, so that's a bit different.
Beyond our, I don't know if there's any control on raccoons as far as wildlife management and stuff.
So the consensus is, of this group is, instead of saying 2 deer and 2 raccoon, just eliminate raccoons and deer from that code.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
They're not your common pet. They're not your common, they're not a farm type animal or a yard type animal that produces something worthwhile.
No,
I guess I would eliminate that from any reference in the ordinance. Okay?
okay. Number 3 was include all districts, not just R1. R1 is single family dwelling, and exclude mobile home park. And my answer was, I did not think that restricting RA, which is basically farming, was necessary. This is a rural township, and R1 residents should be aware of the fact that when they purchase a parcel next to a farm, they should be aware of that. My thought was that mobile home parks, R2, will be excluded because the proposal specifically states that it is that the proposal for chickens that we're adding to the code is just for R1 districts.
One question, does that mean if you live in a mobile home park, you have no regulation on how many chickens you can have?
You
number 3 on the town board comments was include all districts, not just R1, and exclude mobile home parks. But as Lloyd mentioned, R1 is the higher density areas we're concerned with. Mobile home parks, they don't fit with the size lots or anything. So, but we can mention it in the proposed ordinance, I guess, just to make sure it's clear to people. There is no chickens in whatever, R2, I guess, mobile home. I thought that was kind of understood, but I guess not. So.
Okay.
And as far as the RA, that gets into the acreage that you talked about, as far as so many chickens per acre and so many chickens or per every half acre or whatever above that you had mentioned here, quarter acre, whatever you had.
But all those numbers for, half acre and up and 5 acres or more or less, all those numbers were dealing with R1.
R1 zoning.
R1 only. There was no, as far as I know, there's no limits or on chickens in RA.
So most of our RA zone areas in the township are 5 acres or more. Is that what you're assuming or what you're thinking?
Well, I just assumed that they were farms or farm,
Not
because that's,
necessarily. RA zoning is something that hasn't been platted, but it's usually 5 acres or more. Anything less than that could be, should be R1. It is not always in all cases though, RA.
RA is agricultural.
Rural agricultural, yeah.
And if it's plotted, then it would become, the zone would change to R1.
When the plats are done, it's R1, and any of the lots and plats that were done prior to 1978, lots of record are R1. The lake properties, all the small lots, Fawn Lake, Martin Lake, they're all R1. But I'm sure there's some other lots out there that are RA that are smaller than 5 acres. So maybe the acreage reference needs to go into the RA district also. I am going to refer to Susan, I guess, on that. There is numerous properties around that are RA that are smaller than 5 acres.
That's right. Looking at the map, I happened to be sitting at my desk looking at the map, and I saw some parcels that are RA, but there's some that are a half acre. There are some that are 3/4 of an acre. There are some that are 20 acres. So just because they're classified RA doesn't mean they're a minimum of 5, because they haven't been platted. They weren't new lots of record. That's correct.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Tom, sir.
maybe the solution to the problem is just include RA in the definition.
And keep the acreage size
Right,
reference in there.
right.
And then if a farmer's on like 20 or 40 acres and he wants to raise chickens for, market, then
But that goes into the 30 chickens. You had that referred to
yeah,
earlier on.
what he might want more than 30. He would have to come to the board for a variance.
I believe that would be the situation. Which, there isn't many commercial chicken raisers out here, but it could happen. But anything more than a certain amount of chickens, you had it up to 30 chickens maximum on any acreage. And anything more than that would require either interim use or variance type of thing in order to have a more, nobody needs 30 chickens for personal use. I'm sorry, that's out of the scope of person, like it's in the commercial.
5 people, 5 children, 2 adults. You can eat a lot of meat.
That's fine, but not on 2 acres, okay? That's what this is gearing towards, okay? Anything over so many acres, and it's listed farther down the proposed ordinance here, how many chickens you can have. And if you want to have more chickens, you can come to the township, apply for the variance or the interim use permit if it's gonna become more than a commercial operation. I've raised chickens all my life, I know what you're talking about, but just trying to get along with
Get rid of it.
everybody, so.
So the committee is suggesting.
In a while, I'll talk to the audience, right now I'm dealing with, Lloyd, you could continue.
The committee would, suggest to include RA in the,
With the lot sizes that you
Right.
discussed.
so that, I don't think that would
It's not gonna
affect
disturb
any,
the
you know,
whole
you
lot.
could just say R1 and RA, and it wouldn't affect
Any of the other.
any of the other stuff.
And in the wording, should we exclude R2 to get the mobile home park out of the equation, or just assume, you
Yeah.
can't assume anything nowadays, so, okay. Okay.
So include RA and make a note to clarify that R2 is excluded
From any
from
chickens.
any chickens. Okay.
Now, on to number 4.
Okay, reference to lake property, since lake homes qualify for chickens under the proposed changes. But many don't have much space between the home and the lake without having chicken manure potentially getting in the lake. And my response was, my revised proposal, because I revised the proposal due to this question, reduces the permitted number of chickens from 6 to 4 on a half acre, and 7 on 1 acre, which would be consistent with you start with 4 instead of 6, and then you add 3 for every half acre. So 1 acre would be 7. To further reduce the impact on small lots, I propose to further limit ducks. The new proposal would read as thus. 1A1, less than 1/2 acre, 4 chickens allowed. 3 additional chickens per each additional full half acre, up to 30 chickens maximum. No ducks allowed on less than half an acre. Ducks may be exchanged for the permitted number of chickens allowed on more than half an acre, up to a maximum of 6. I thought 4 was a good minimum number. In general, 4 chickens produce less manure than a couple of dogs. Plus, the coop placement must meet all setbacks, which include setbacks from wetlands. If they can't meet the setbacks, then they would have to apply for a variance. I believe that the proposed section 3703 14B or 1B4 and 703 1G and 1H cover the manure issues.
With the town board, one of the things they had a problem with was they wanted 4 chickens per acre, only 4 chickens per acre of land. And I didn't think that was reasonable. You had 6, and they asked for 4.
Half acre.
No, I thought it was 1 acre.
That was for half acre.
Okay. No, I still had no problem with 6, but whatever. Your proposal here sounds acceptable for small lots. Some of the Martin Lake lots and Fawn Lake lots are 1/4 acre or less. And I don't know what happens on a 1/4 acre. Well, less than half an acre, 4 chickens, okay. Any other comments from planning and zoning members regarding that number 4 question from the town board?
Seems very reasonable to me.
I think it's, yeah, I think so.
Why anybody would want more than that chickens in this small lot?
Okay. Then on number 4, the next page, Lloyd, you got coop thing. Coop setback as far as must be setback requirements.
Yeah, there was no real change to the original proposal.
Meeting all setback as
They
far
were-
as 10 foot and,
They were included here just for reference,
yeah, okay.
but they are from the proposal for change.
Well,
Just-
one of the biggest changes of what they recommended and what you did was eliminating that and/or thing. That
Yeah.
defined the thing as far as chickens and ducks, so that helped a whole lot, getting stuff straightened out. And then on this also, there's a bunch of comments regarding manure, what the DNR and soil water management has, and we're meeting all them requirements pretty much. I mean, there's no restrictions or regulations as far as that, other than, you know, not running manure right into the lake, but that's just addressed in other parts of your proposal there.
So this number 4 basically reduces chickens allowed for a half an acre to 4. And changes allowance for ducks below a half acre, none. And above a half an acre, you're restricted to 6 ducks total. But they, it's not an additional on top of the chickens. It's if you have, you can replace a duck for a chicken if you've got more, if you're on more than a half acre, up to 6.
Right, and, yeah, your revisions kind of clarify that, it's 6 total. 3 chickens, 3 ducks, that's 6.
Yeah.
You
No,
can't,
no.
you can't have 6 chickens and 6 ducks.
You can have, say, you're on 1 acre. You can have.
Oh, you can have 7 total.
You can have
critters.
7 total,
Yeah,
which is, so you could have 1 chicken and 6 ducks.
right, but no more than, yeah. I'm talking on the, okay, I understand what you're saying. I hope the township can define all this stuff when we get down, that's all. Okay,
Number 5.
yeah,
I turn this over to Susan because I haven't commented on item 5.
Yes, so a supervisor had wondered about the manure, the waste going to the lakes, and so I reached out to, local conservation and also, I'm sorry, first of all, the DNR. DNR doesn't have any specific requirements for that situation. That said, it could be useful to indicate that manure cannot be intentionally disposed of in sensitive areas such as shore impact zone or wetland buffers. And the Anoka Conservation and also the Sunrise River Watershed District also has no permits or requirements. But looking at that, obviously, as a public nuisance, is something that impacts others using and enjoying their property, impacting the environment, pretty broad again. Like they said, tough to know what that impact is big enough to be actionable. And again, best practices not to be placed, such as the topography allows surface runoff from that site to directly flow into the lake, river, stream, or tributary. The same site might be wise for permanent animal pens. This might apply only if there are greater than X number of animals. There's a difference between 2 ducks and are outside a few months and 20 chickens in the same spot year round. And then they, of course, just reiterate the setbacks for private wells, including neighbors' wells, and then timeline for the regular offsite disposal of manure. Should folks be disposing of pile manure annually or some interval? And then shoreline lots, like I know conservation did reiterate, tend to be smaller because the number of animals allowed change with the lot size. So that was the feedback I received from conservation as well as the DNR.
Number 6, the proposed ordinance says the coop and pen shall be in the rear and side yards only. This has other ramifications such as setbacks and fences, to name 2. I answered by the proposed new code follows the existing code for portable structure. See 1B4. Also, see my revised proposal of June 6th in 1B5. The 1B4 currently states the coop is considered a portable structure that shall meet all setback requirements required of portable structures, and does not require a building or zoning permit. 1B5, I was recommended to change that to, except for lakefront parcels, the coop and pen shall be in rear and side yards only. So if you have a lakefront parcel, your coop can go in the front or the back, wherever you want to put it, as long as it meets setback. But other than lakefront, it has to be in the side or the back.
And that's been some question on that lakefront properties, their front yard is the lakeside, not the roadside. And that's an issue that townships dealt with on different occasions.
Other way around, according to our ordinance, the street side is the front yard and the lake side is the rear yard. And that was the issue.
And so go ahead.
Okay, but people consider their front yard the lake.
I have always considered it that way, but that isn't what our ordinance says.
And so
Then
I
how
was
does
just
this
trying
con-
to skirt that issue by saying, for the chicken ordinance, except for lakefront parcels, there's no restriction on where you put it. It's just on everything else, you need to, be per existing code and have it in the front or side, the side or backyards.
Yeah, all right.
Because that's existing in our code today, for portable structures. They have to be in the back or side yards. But I was, for the chicken code, for the chicken coop, I was just trying to skirt that issue by allowing it wherever. As long as you meet the setbacks.
There's another issue with that. It's not only the setbacks you need to deal with, it's the impervious surface. You can only, on a lake lot, you can only have, you can help me out here, so it's 25%
That's right.
of your lot. And if you can't just say it doesn't count, because this isn't a township rule, it is a state rule. So sometimes people get really upset because they want that shed, but they already have a deck and a patio and a this and a that, and they already have up to more than 25%, and they can't add any more. So even if it's a chicken coop, that has to count.
Yeah. So this is the way it's stated, it wouldn't violate that, right?
Well, the way it's stated is, in my opinion, the way it's stated here is kinda you can have a chicken coop wherever you want it. Well, you can't really have a chicken coop wherever you want it. You have to obey the rules.
Right. Well, my intent was, and I didn't stay, I was trying to keep it brief, but the intent is if you're allowed to have a chicken coop, you can put it wherever you want it.
Okay, those are better words.
Does it need to be some language in here that refers to that impervious surface? That you cannot exceed 25% or something of your,
I think so. I think that
or
would
is
be a
that
good
in
idea.
the, because this chicken coop wouldn't require a building permit, so it wouldn't go through zoning administrator or building department. But as long as there was a disclaimer in there that said that placement of a coop wouldn't exceed the 25% or whatever you're talking. I don't know how to include that in the wording here. Tom Siri.
I'm looking at the state law, and it says that applies if the property is within 1,000 feet of a lake or 300 feet of a river or creek. It's not every property.
No, but on Lake Shore, is what I'm referring to.
Yeah, and those on a river or a creek.
It's more than a lake shore though, because it's 1,000 feet.
Yeah. And who's gonna monitor that?
What?
Who's gonna monitor that and check out where they put their 120 square foot chicken coop?
Well, this might sound like a cop-out answer, but our tradition has always been, rather than paying somebody to enforce codes, we rely on complaints from neighbors to call our attention to it. And then we enforce it. Right?
So the lakefront parcels, it's just a matter of they can be placed anywhere as long as they meet other requirements in the township.
Yeah, and again, I wanna make it clear that it's not just lakefront properties,
It's all,
it's
right.
within 1,000 feet of the lake, which is quite a distance.
So maybe you could just say that, you know, if they meet the ordinance, no matter what, they have to
Well,
meet the ordinance.
instead
And
of-
they'd have to look it up to find that. If they're not, somebody complains and they're not gonna be able to happen.
Or if they come and want something else, and it, you know, people see they don't need it, then they'll have to do something.
Well, your blue highlighted thing on there, it says lakefront parcels, what if you put in there, parcels that are subject to the lake shoreline zoning district? Cause that's your 1,000 foot that you're talking about, shoreline zoning district. So properties that are subject to that, which is your 1,000 foot setback from any body of water, lake, river, whatever. If with that, instead of lakefront, put in the shoreline zoning district, I think that would define it a little better. Carol, you think so?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm only one of 5 though.
Could I address the commission for just a moment? But a river is 300 feet from a river,
Right.
for shoreland.
So if it meets the criteria for shoreline zoning, lake, or riverfront is still part of shoreline zoning?
Yes, shoreland is 1,000 feet from a lake, pond, or flowage, 300 feet from a river or stream.
But it's part of the shoreline ordinance.
Correct.
So if
That's
we
the definition of the shoreland.
just call it shoreline ordinance, just so it meets the criteria of the shoreline ordinance, that'll cover lakes or rivers, then you don't need to put footage or anything on it, it just, and that probably changes decade to decade as things go, but just put except for shoreline zoning districts. Sound acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a copy of it if you want it. Oh, yeah.
Number 7, are existing chickens and roosters as well as ducks, raccoons, deer grandfathered in since this is new? Well, we've already talked about raccoons and deer, we're just gonna scratch those. But existing chickens and roosters as well as ducks, should they be grandfathered? And personally, I think that if we grandfather that's not gonna work. Grandfathering doesn't work very well. If there's a complaint later, how are you gonna, regulate that? So I wouldn't grandfather.
From my understanding and what I've been told by attorneys over the years, there is no grandfathering anymore.
Okay.
When a new ordinance comes into play, everybody complies within a certain amount of time. Nobody's grandfathered in on any of the ordinances. That is what the attorneys have told us, correct? I don't know, Susan and Pam, but that is what I've heard over the years. Grandfathering is a thing of the past. It's when you get a new ordinance, you have so much time to comply and that's it. So that grandfathering shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. Number 8, is there information needed to reference raccoons and deer since they are mentioned in the ordinance? Well, we've changed that tonight, so I did write, I have no references, just thought that since there was a concern that there were no limits, I added 2. So it was just an arbitrary thing. But since we've eliminated deer and raccoons from that paragraph, then
Okay.
8 is, no.
Number 8 is a non-issue anyhow.
Number 9, under 30-7378, all structures have maximum size limits, except number 4, where it states 1 portable structure, but there's no limit to the size. I see in the details, the maximum is 250 square feet, whereas if it's a chicken coop, it's 120 square feet. Is that why a specific size is left off the general description section? I didn't even think about addressing that particular, I noticed that there was no limit, or, like as 250 feet, but I didn't see it as affecting the proposed code. If we wanted to add 250 feet, just to make things clear, that would be fine with me. But it didn't really affect, in my opinion, it didn't affect the proposed code change.
If you added 250, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you add 250 square feet for a chicken coop, that would be subject to a building permit.
But I took it as 250 feet for a portable structure, not used as a chicken coop. If it was used as a chicken coop, then it's restricted to 120.
The board person that suggested it be 250 square feet was talking about a chicken coop. But if you do, I don't think the person understood that if you had 250 square feet, you would have to have a building permit.
Yes.
So,
And since chicken coops are not, or restricted to 120, you wouldn't need a building.
right, so you're keeping it at 120, that's all they need to know.
So
We're good.
we're good with putting it there, 250 on that paragraph, or not? Just leave it like as is?
Just leave it at 120 and don't worry about the 250.
Okay.
And if the board doesn't like it, they'll have to change it. They always have that option,
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 10, under 3667, number 3, since more than one portable structure is allowed on a parcel, would it read better if the new text was, or no more than 120 square feet for a chicken and or duck coop? When I read the existing text, it makes it sound like only one portable structure is allowed, either 250 square feet or 120 square feet coop. Well, my intent of making the changes, or making the proposal for the chicken ordinance was to not to restrict being able to have a portable structure that was used other than chicken coop. But if you wanted a chicken coop, you could add a chicken coop. So you could have a portable structure at 250 feet and a chicken coop as long as it was less than 120 square feet.
So you could have a garden shed that was up to 250 square feet and still have a chicken coop on the side that was 120, and it would comply with what you're proposing here, which to me sounds reasonable.
We have 2 coops that are cumulatively 120 square feet, so if they wanted 2 smaller ones, as long as they didn't exceed 120 square feet total in chicken coops. on
You can
these
have,
are-
you could have a storage building, a portable storage building that's not used for chickens, and one, chicken coop.
Or you can have two tiny.
But you can't have two chicken coops, because there's another, in the proposed ordinance, only one chicken coop is allowed.
For the sake of this ordinance, that there are one chicken coop per parcel, should be enough. Anybody that wants, again, you can have so many chickens, whatever, in a chicken coop. But to have more than that, if you're gonna have 30 chickens, you may want more than one chicken coop. But you'd have to go through a variance or a review process of some kind. The other thing that's mentioned on here, and I see it now, the 50 square foot that they wanted for a chicken coop, that isn't reasonable. That's too small for anything. Time you get done, maybe. you
Okay,
can
so
adjust
I wanna explain that.
Okay.
So that comes from another piece of the proposed code. Let's see, do you have a copy of the,
Board
June
comments
6th.
is here, yeah.
well, I think it's on here. It's not working. What's it for? There it is. Okay, so in the June 6th proposal for chicken ordinance, I revised the original proposal to say, and I revised it because of concern on small lots. And so the proposed ordinance would read, the coop shall be a minimum of 2.5 square feet per square feet in area per bird, but less than 50 square feet total on parcels up to 1 acre. So if you have less than an acre, you're restricted to a 50 square foot chicken coop.
It's not big enough.
But you're only allowed 7 chickens.
And a 5 by 10 room with chickens, I don't know if you ever raised chickens, but that ain't gonna cut it. There's a 250 or the 120 square foot minimum, a maximum, I think that's appropriate. The 50 square foot, a 5 by 10 structure to house 7 chickens, you got, inside you've got 4 by whatever, something. 4 foot by 9 foot or something in order to get, and in order to have nesting boxes and other stuff within there and still keep.
Yeah, well, nesting boxes are excluded from the
Well,
square
they're in the
footage.
coop now. Nesting boxes, traditionally are inside the coop.
But in the ordinance where we're talking about the size of the chicken coop, nesting boxes were excluded from the size. So
Where are you gonna put them?
well, they would be attached as part of the chicken coop, right? But you won't have to count the square footage in the nesting box.
I still think that 120 is an adequate size for a chicken coop. The 50 foot just seems real small, and I've raised chickens most of my life, and out there, and for 7 chickens, that's a very small quarters. They need to move, they need to run, and I know there's provisions for having a fenced-in run for them. They can have that so many feet of a run in the yard, but for housing overnight, a 5 by 10 room in that there doesn't seem adequate, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, my intent was just to restrict it
For small lots.
on
yeah.
small lots
But still,
to
120,
up to
that's
7
like-
chickens.
10 by 12 building on a small lot isn't that intrusive, isn't that, I wouldn't think it's that offensive for the neighbors and that, to have a 10 by 12, which is our 120, and then still the nesting boxes within that. I think that 50 foot in my opinion, you know, Rusty, you can voice that too, but I think it's not really appropriate for the chickens.
Okay. Well,
I'm arguing on behalf of the chickens.
Okay. Well, I'm not against,
I know, you've done a lot of work with this, Lloyd, I applaud you for that.
so
but I
we'll
think
we'll just keep everything at 120.
that's what I'm promoting, so.
Number 11, would it make sense to add the maximum size to and one portable storage structure? I think we just talked about that.
Yeah, that's everything.
Number 12, why not allow a coop on a vacant lot? I found many residents have one or more adjoining parcels, and I'm not sure why they wouldn't be allowed to have their chickens there as long as it's an adjoining parcel. So due to that question, I propose to make this following change to the proposed chicken code. And that would be, chickens and ducks shall not be permitted on properties containing multifamily residential buildings, including duplexes, townhomes, and apartments. Chickens and ducks shall not be permitted on vacant properties unless the vacant property is adjacent to the resident's main dwelling parcel and will be considered as one parcel for compliance with this section.
Mr. Searing, you look like you're questioning something.
Yeah, we won't let somebody build a pole barn on an adjacent property without a home. Home has to come first. Right?
Why?
I think the town code says that you can't just build an accessory building on a vacant lot.
You can be adjoining your residence.
If you own both properties, why wouldn't you be able to build a building on the other property?
You'd have to join the two by a property identification number.
Yeah, that's right, you have
But
to,
for this ordinance, for the sake of this ordinance, they could be considered one parcel, because it is a temporary structure as far as, I think that's where you're going with this, Lloyd. But having chickens on a vacant lot adjacent to your home, isn't a permanent structure. It's a portable structure that could be moved.
good point.
That different than building an accessory building that's got footings, foundation, or whatever. I think that's where you're.
Yeah, because chicken coops have no
But
foundation.
you're right, it's stated earlier in your
Yeah.
proposal, yeah, right.
Have we had people requesting that? We're
Well,
adding it on, why?
somebody, that question came from the town board.
Okay.
I yield. Oh,
Does that make sense, Tom?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that as long as it's not on a permanent foundation.
Yeah, as long as it's
different than an
temporary
accessory
structure,
building,
yeah.
That was all the changes.
That was concerns that the
Concerns
town
from
board
the town
had,
board.
and you did well at addressing them, so. Now from the floor. Step up to the microphone so we can, oh.
I have one more comment. I want to thank and congratulate Lloyd for all that work. It's
Me
a lot
too.
of work.
Believe me. Honest to God. We've done a whole lot to get this understandable to the board and the planning commission and define the reasons of why the changes were made and rationalize them. So it was really an effort, believe me. If I could be that techie, I would have typed it up myself. Thank you, Mike. Yes, sir.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Oh, yeah.
So first off, I'll just say thanks for letting me come up here. I understand you already had a public hearing about this a few weeks ago. So I understand it's probably frustrating to hear concerns now when you wish that you would have heard these a few weeks ago. I just asked that to see things from my perspective. I just found out about this a couple days ago, so if I could go back in time, I would, but it's not an option for me, so I'm here tonight.
Could you give your name and your address?
Of course, yeah. My name is Sam Cole. I live at 6740 230th Lane Northeast, Stacy, Minnesota. I moved to Linwood in 2021 with my wife and our daughters. My daughters are ages 1 and 3. We moved here from the Twin Cities for a variety of reasons, but mostly because we wanted to raise our children in a natural environment. Tonight I'm here to oppose the ordinance related to non-domestic animals, specifically chickens and roosters. In most circumstances, I firmly believe that we should have the right to use our property as we see fit, so long as we aren't directly harming our neighbors. I hear a lot of the word arbitrary being passed around tonight, and that's, to be honest, kind of how it feels. I hear a lot of numbers about square foot, about number of chickens. I appreciate the work you've done into it, but it really does kind of feel like numbers that were either made up or maybe copied from a adjoining county. And while it may be arbitrary in here, that these have real consequences for myself and my neighbors. I also hear the word reasonable being thrown around, and I agree that a lot of these proposed changes do sound reasonable, but just because it's reasonable doesn't mean that it should be legislated. For example, you could say an ordinance saying I can't have more than 50 TVs in my house is reasonable. I agree that's reasonable, but that doesn't mean I want it legislated. And I agree, I think that chickens and roosters fall into this category. Linwood seems to have gotten along just fine until now without any ordinances about chickens. I believe it would continue to do just fine without them, but I would like to get into some specifics about my concerns. This was brought up before about all the things with the coop, being the rear and the side yards, about the square footage. I can't remember who brought this up, but I don't believe the township has the resources or the expertise to certify that these chicken coops are up to code. We're not, like you said, you don't want to pay somebody to go around and with a measuring tape and measure people's chicken coops. So what you're going to be relying on is neighbors calling in and reporting their other neighbors. I feel like that isn't building the kind of community that you'd want to have. If my neighbor has a problem with my rooster being too loud or with my compost pile being too smelly, I feel like I want to live in a community where that's something that I work out with my neighbor and that I don't work out with government involvement.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Megan Brostrom, 7365 237th Avenue in Stacy. I guess I'm kind of new to the party too, but just had a question. I feel like, and maybe I'm not a zoning and planning confidant, but how do other townships define chickens? Are they defined as livestock or domestic animals? Because I feel like that's kind of the root of all of this. I just kind of, while we were here listening, I looked up a couple definitions, and what I found was livestock refers to specific animals for breed or usually in an agriculture setting for food extraction or labor, and most consider poultry to be included under livestock. I don't think anybody's using raccoons or deer for, whatever they produce. And domestic animals would fall under that, same as cats and dogs. And so I just feel like the root of how they're defined is kind of the cause for issue here, because a lot of us are relying on them for meat birds or for eggs to feed our children and our families. So I'm glad that the raccoon and deer were taken out of that, but I just feel like we're kind of defining this animal, roosters, ducks, and chickens, incorrectly.
We're not alone on this issue. It's a surrounding community, rural-urban interface thing. And we have looked at surrounding ordinances. Lloyd, you've looked at different ones surrounding the metro area. I guess it's a complaint-driven thing is why we're going through this. We were directed by the board to work on the chicken ordinance. We worked on chicken coops a year or 2 years ago, and we considered them just an accessory building. Well, that wasn't good enough. They weren't the definition of a chicken coop. So here we are. And that's why we're trying to formulate an ordinance that gets along with, and again, it's the urban sprawl, whatever we're dealing with, and we're trying to handle it to where we can handle the city people along with the country people, and that's what this is about. Anybody else want to add to that?
How many complaints were had that this is even
I
necessary?
can't answer that, the board, the administration, the staff could. We have had numerous complaints about things, whether it's chickens, ducks, geese, any type of fowl, running into the neighbor's yard. And the town board asked us to look into putting something together. And that's why we're here, so. Yes, sir, in the back. Yeah, that's you.
I'll go up.
Rick.
I know it all anyway.
Okay.
Sorry I didn't make it to the public meeting. I do work a lot of hours, as you all might know.
Give your name and address, please.
Rick Kramer, 5640 Pond Lake Drive, Stacy. My biggest concern is, I understand people have complaints, and that the roosters and the guinea hens are reasonable on small acreage lots. I can understand that. I don't like the fact of restricting anything. We all moved to Linwood for a reason. We've all been here for a long time. It's no different than you, Joe. If you had chickens, you didn't have to get a variance. You just got chickens because you wanted to have chickens. I think people should be allowed to do that. One major thing that really disagree with is now you want to make it a zone for all. RA is agricultural, should be agricultural, should stay agricultural. I'm sorry that some lots are smaller than 5 acres. Maybe, I don't know, but if you have a farmer who wants to have however many chickens he wants, he should have to do that. Don't have to do it, because every time you have to come to the town board, have variance takes times, and things get shot down. So, that's also a possibility too. I feel like things are getting more and more restricted. I don't think that that's right. Maybe, I don't understand, that's for you guys, I try to figure out, make everybody happy, which is not easy. Like the watershed thing, she's mentioned that, she talked to DNR, they didn't really have any restrictions, so I think if the DNR doesn't have any restrictions, or why are we adding restrictions onto it? Especially when people are on a lake, they're trying to get rid of geese on their shores all the time. I'm pretty sure the geese poop a lot more than 6 chickens do.
And all the birds that fly over lakes.
Yeah.
Stop the fish from pooping.
I guess that's about all I gotta say. I wish I had some more key points, but not real good at all that, but just don't like restrictions. I like to be able to do what I want. No big brother that come over my head all the time. Thank you.
I wish it was 50 years ago too, but it's not, so. Yes, sir, in the back. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
My address is 6743 230th Avenue Northeast, Stacy, Minnesota. Good evening, I'm Maddie, and I'm sorry we were not here 2 weeks ago. We didn't know about it. I literally found out today. So kind of a bad scramble. But I'm here to propose ordinance. And then I know there's some talk about the selling of eggs too. And that wasn't talked about today, but it was in the paper. Is that still not talked about?
It was a random comment.
A random comment, perfect. We only get half of this stuff. Chickens are helpful pest control. They eat wood ticks, mice, snakes, and other insects we don't want around our families. Roosters act as pest control too, but they have other really important jobs as well. The rooster is a protector of the flock. The rooster also fertilizes the eggs. This makes it so that an egg will actually turn into a chick. Raising chickens from fertilized eggs is far better than buying baby chicks from the store. Not only is it cheaper, promotes self-sufficiency, and a great teach-not-ship opportunity for the children, it is also better for the overall chicken population. Chicks raised by a mother hen grow up to have stronger mother instincts, therefore bettering the chicken species. A rooster is needed for all of these things to take place. Yes, I understand that roosters crow, and it can be annoying at times. But what about the sound of the neighbor's radio, or the dog barking, or the sound of the kids down the street screaming because they're having too much fun in the pool? Or the neighbor who mows his lawn just a little bit too early in the morning? In Linwood, we are a community. We need to talk to one another respectfully about our issues and come to agreements as adults and as neighbors. In conclusion, roosters give chicken owners self-sufficiency and peace of mind. In Linwood, we don't want our freedom restricted. We want to have a community where we can have a conversation with someone if they have an issue with their noise, whether it's from a rooster, dog radio, or otherwise. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, sir.
My name is Spencer Dilly, 6900 225th Avenue Northeast. I'm here and opposed to this. What you consider reasonable numbers, I find ridiculous. I'm a family of 6. We will kill an 18-pack, if not almost 2 dozen eggs, one breakfast. So your 6 birds ain't gonna cut it. We have currently 14, and we can barely keep enough eggs for our family. We are on 3/4 of an acre of a lot. You know, go to the neighbor's yard, nothing. So what you consider reasonable numbers is ridiculous. The average chicken takes 3 square feet in a coop. So you can have, you know, our coop is 6 by 8. We can have more than the birds that we have now. So wherever you get your numbers is incorrect. But I'm highly opposed against this, and it's gonna hurt my family and others in this city. Tired of the restrictions that you guys try to put on everything. None of you pay my property tax, so none of you should have a say on what goes on inside my private residence or on my private property.
Don't direct your concerns directly to White, because we all agreed with the proposal that he put together. He looked it over. He took from other communities surrounding us and that. We're not standing out there alone on this issue. So it's a gathered thing from other communities that do comply with this in order to try to keep the peace amongst different people.
We're not other communities though.
Yeah, a lot of people moved here because of the lack of nonsense in Linwood. Yeah. Now it just keeps becoming more and more and more and more.
What's the point of separate counties if they all have the same rules?
Here, I see looking at other cities, but if you look at other townships, you know, that's why we're.
Yes, he has. Yes, we have. I looked at him too. He was able to compile information that I believe was consistent with other communities that are having similar issues. So, again, I don't want you to single Lloyd out as the culprit here, because he's not. We're all in this together, so. Yes, sir.
William Gabbard, 23890 Sunrise Road. First, I'd like to thank the zoning committee and the board for all the work they've done putting this together. I know it took a lot of energy from everyone. I watched the February meeting that's posted on YouTube, and this all came about from one guy that came in here and complained about a rooster from a neighbor. And I'm not familiar with the board, but the man who usually sits in that seat had a very good point. You can have a dog in Linwood Township, but you can't have a barking dog in Linwood Township. How is a rooster any different? Well, I agree with him. The noisy roosters are already covered under the nuisance noise ordinances. And there was a little joke that night about, well, the sheriff doesn't enforce our noise ordinances. Well, I would suggest that rather than make a bunch of new ordinances that have very little to do with the original complaint, to have a discussion with the sheriff and ask them if there really is a problem that 2 neighbors can't sort out, then have the sheriff get involved and actually enforce our noise ordinances.
Yeah.
Why create a bunch of extra ordinances that the sheriff isn't going to enforce anyway? So I would ask that we, with the backing of 32 people, throw this whole thing out, enforce the noise ordinance that's already in play, and remember that the minority cannot run the majority around here. Thank you.
Tara Pierce, 7529 244th Main Northeast, and I'm here to oppose the ordinance. I have a high concern on the well-being of the chickens and roosters that currently exist. I don't know if you guys have done your research on what happens to unwanted roosters. They are slaughtered. You cannot get rid of them. You cannot sell them. Nobody wants them unless you hatch them or seek them out specifically. I encourage you to do your research. Go on Facebook, go to the Minnesota Rooster reforming sites, join Minnesota Backyard Chicken, join Everything Backyard Chicken, and look at the numbers of roosters that are culled, which means slaughtered, because they cannot find a home for them because their township, city does not allow them. Some of them are accidental. We don't seek them out sometimes. I have 2 accidental roosters right now. If I can't find someone to take them, I have to kill them. Some people who have flocks in our township right now will have to decide what to do with the overage in hens that they have. Do they sell them or slaughter them? You cannot sell grown hens. Nobody wants a 2-year-old hen. Nobody wants a 3-year-old hen. Their laying life is short. They will be slaughtered. And so I really want you guys to think about this before you put anything in stone on how many people are allowed to have. Because you're putting people in a position to have to slaughter their pets. They're roosters that protect their hens from coyotes that I hear scream all night long.
Yep.
We don't have an ordinance on the box. And the coyotes that wake me up in the middle of the night multiple times screaming. So what's the difference when a rooster does it during the day when everyone's awake? People will have to slaughter their pets, you guys. And nobody's bringing that up. You cannot pay someone to take a full-grown rooster.
Anybody else on the floor? Yes, in the back row. Again, I wish you was here at the public hearing. We had little influence, little impact there, and I don't know that this is gonna make a difference, to be honest with you. But we'll listen to you for now and see where it goes.
My name is Mary Welty, 241st Avenue Northeast, and I'd like the board to kind of look at this issue and the community from a slightly different perspective. And that perspective is food security. The United States is notorious for highly centralized food supply, and that makes it very vulnerable. We're a very short distance from the COVID days when a dozen eggs was $7, $8. You see that happen again, you're gonna see explosions of people raising chickens. And they should. They have to feed their families. The goal of the board should see that it's done well. It should not only not restrict it, it should encourage and help people to learn how to do it right.
Correct.
Those of you who have been raising chickens for 20, 30 years, because that's how long I've been up here, and all my neighbors have chickens. You know how to do it well, volunteer at the township. Hold a workshop. You want to raise chickens, this is how you do it right. Do the township, if you get complaints on specific residences, ask the people who have the knowledge. Go look. Have them go with a sheriff. Say, hey, we've had several complaints. We're here just to make sure you've got a good operation going with your chickens. And if the chickens are healthy and they've got a reasonable setup, there shouldn't be any further issue. But at least the homeowner will know the person coming is not strongly biased against the chickens being raised there. And you who would volunteer, it's in your own interest. Not just for the chickens you might be raising, but you might sell your eggs. You don't need a reputation of bad growth, unhealthy chickens and bad environments. It's just a little different perspective. And I think it's important to consider that this could be a strength for our community rather than letting a few complaints destroy one of the best things we got going up here.
Ben Garbus, 23850 Leo Street. So, I also oppose the restriction of everything that we've been discussing or hearing. I agree with everything what everyone said. You know, it's hard to look at this and think, well, you know, too little, too late. We had the public meeting before, but you guys are still kind of going back and forth discussing this. You know, I think at the very least, there should be some kind of, okay, this is what we're gonna actually do. What does the public have to say on it, right? But you guys are still kind of going through. So once again, I feel, and probably others feel like we're kind of being left in the dust. So it's somewhat, you know, it is disheartening to hear you guys, you know, and I understand where the position you're coming from, saying like, well, it's kind of too late, but I personally just find that to be unacceptable. You know, I mean, just considering to see the amount of people that are showing up, I'm sure you guys have seen Facebook posts or whatever, you know, people expressing their concerns, also stating they live busy lives and aren't able to attend, you know, so I can't oppose it any stronger than I can explain, and I just think that a little more revisiting this and this solid, well, thanks for the info, but we've already made up our mind kind of mentality. So I greatly appreciate, respect all your guys' time and the effort that you put into looking and researching. I mean, again, I'm kind of trying to piece these things together too, again, with, you know, trying to, you know, be the family man, do the kids' games and be part of that, but then also try to come up and, you know, see what's going on. You know, it's frustrating because I feel that there should be more engagement from, you know, the committee or whatever, you know. I understand it's on us as the people who live here too, but it just kind of feels like some of the stuff gets snuck through and all of a sudden, yeah, we had a public meeting, so too bad now. But I don't know. I appreciate the amount of effort that went in, but again, looking at this, it looks like one person came to the planning and zoning and had the issue, and now we gotta do all this kind of stuff when that should have just been, you know, handled at a more personal, you know, a civil suit or something. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know how all this stuff works exactly, but I think changing everything and the amount of time and effort that's put in was definitely not needed. So again, thank you guys very much, but I definitely oppose.
There'll be more people coming.
Yes, the lady with the baggage here.
Mine's free, we're good.
Do I have to do the address again? Okay, just check. So, rather than selling of eggs, how about just the eating of eggs? So 1 year ago, as someone else brought up, there was an egg shortage in grocery stores. If you were lucky enough to even find any available, they were charging $7 a nut for a carton and limiting them so you can only buy one carton at a time. We're eating about a carton a day for our family of 4 now for breakfast. During this time, I bought the eggs locally at the 24/7 Egg Guys for $5. They were not upcharging at all. And there was not a limit on how many you could buy. But it seemed like there was always enough. My guess is because the good folks of this Linwood community were thoughtful and only bought what they needed because we're a community who looks after one another. The eggs that we get locally and from our neighbors, and if you grow them or have them hatched at your house, the eggs that come from a family farm come from happy chickens. They're not just another egg layer, but a beloved pet. My 3-year-old, who got kicked out for being noisy, sorry for that, he got to name his chickens. And every morning he wants to go and check on them and take good care of them. I cannot wait until he finds his first eggs from his chickens and he gets to guess if it was Noodle, Cheese, Cinnamon, Sammy, or LMA who laid it. And his rooster is named Jared, and he loves his little Jared. I would much rather buy my eggs directly from the neighbor or raise them myself and know that they're good quality. Also, I was wondering if we could have the public meeting mailed. I know we do the
Like there's a monthly thing about the Linwood community that gets taken, or that gets mailed. Is the public meeting in there? The public board meetings? We know.
Where are all the board meetings posted?
That. Because like no one here heard about this until a couple days ago.
Where are the meetings posted?
On the website.
On the website.
I've looked, I can't find them.
And then,
They don't look, because it's very first, if the board meeting is that week, or like today, or yesterday, or a week ago, if you look, planning and zoning agenda is on the very first thing on the website.
so I was wondering, can we get that mailed out monthly? Is there a way we can have that
No,
mailed?
there's quarterly newsletters that come out from the township. The rest of it is well informed on the township website. Go to Linwood Township, not some other bogus Facebook thing. Go to Linwood Township, and it's a very well orchestrated website. It's put together, and you can navigate it easily and find your way through as far as town board, planning commission, park board, road committee. Everything is listed on the township website. And it's,
Thank you.
Quick question, how many people here found out about this because of the
I got a note
Linwood
today.
Township community notes on Facebook?
that's fine. I'm just saying, that's not the
That's how you
township
reach
official
your
web. Well, again,
constituents.
I ain't into Facebook, I never will be. And I
Okay,
don't
but
care
you
about
got
that.
staff,
Right?
that's how you reach your community.
Okay. This is the official action of the township, okay? I don't know where we're going from here. I don't know where the planning and zoning commission is on this issue. We've got input from here. Again, I feel bad that nothing happened in the last 3 months. We've been dealing with this since March, trying to formulate something, get something put together, and trying to follow board directive. We had a public hearing. We sent our information to the town board. They kicked it back with a couple pages of concerns. We tried to deal with them, and we're trying to move forward.
Well, who's
Now,
coming to
again,
take
I
my
understand
chickens
your
up?
concerns, but again, somebody mentioned there's 30 people here. There's over 2,000 adult residents in this township. 30 out of 2,000 isn't the majority.
Well,
I'm
mail
not
something out
diminishing what you people are here for, not at all. But I just want to say that you don't represent the whole township or a core
You're not gonna stop
value.
a single one.
So I just, we have to take into account other than, there's more than one complaint in this township about the chickens and roosters. And again, I raised chickens all my life, whether as a kid or whatever, even now, we got 14 of them at home, so. It just, I understand your concerns, and I understand, you know, the value of rural living in that there. But there's city people that come in that don't like it. We're trying to administer in the middle, I guess is the best I can say.
You're gonna see a lot more people, I promise.
I hope we don't see anybody. I hope the board and the planning commission can deal with this without a mob atmosphere. That's,
Good luck.
I've dealt with that in the past, I don't like it, so. Anyway, comments from planning and zoning members. Where do we go from here?
I just have one question. Everybody has a complaint, you know, that they don't like the ordinance, but nobody really said what they want. Some people are saying, I just wanna have chickens. Well, are the numbers that far off, really?
Yeah.
I mean, how many chickens? I don't know. I mean, how many chickens do each of you have?
Per day from every, one egg per chicken
No.
every day, so if you
Yeah,
got
if we're
6
going
chickens,
for
you're
an
getting 3 or
18
4
pound
eggs
day.
a day, right? Now you got 6 kids, 7 kids, 8 kids, a husband, a wife.
And I will add that all my compost has grown my garden for 4 years, and everything out of my garden gets me through winter.
Amen.
We live in a sandy place, and without my chicken compost, I couldn't grow what I grow to feed myself all winter.
Same here, I use all my compost.
What we want is for you to scratch the whole thing and leave the ordinances the way they are.
Just enforce it.
Encourage
Leave us
neighbors to
alone.
talk to neighbors. Encourage neighbors to talk to neighbors instead of bringing it to the board and complaining to mother hens.
Civil matters, civil
Yes.
matters.
Civil
And if the
matters.
neighbors are complete jackholes, then it should be a civil matter.
If any of you have
Yes.
been involved over the last 20-some years in that there, you would realize the noise ordinance is very difficult to determine and enforce. It has been difficult for the township to work with. It could be done, but it is a very difficult thing because what annoys you satisfies somebody else.
So because you can't enforce something that's already on the books, you're gonna make new stuff?
That's political. I can't answer that.
I wouldn't answer if I was you.
Can I say something small about roosters quick?
Yes, sir.
Apologize, I intended to bring this up earlier, but I forgot about it completely. Not interested in berating you guys further, I'm sure you're gonna get plenty of grief, but since it sounds like you're gonna be moving forward with this, I just wanna bring up one small thing about roosters. My opinion on it beforehand was, as somebody uneducated, was that roosters are kind of just for breeding, for farmers, and I'm sure that some of you may share that opinion, that why do you really need a rooster? It doesn't lay eggs, why is it important? Protects your flock, maybe that's not so important in comparison to maybe neighbors' sanity. But there's one last thing that I want you to consider, which doesn't come to mind. As I mentioned earlier, I have 2 young kids, and a few weeks ago we had 7 baby chicks that were born that my daughters both get to play with in our backyard, and that wouldn't be possible without a rooster. So, all I ask is, if you do have to make some sort of acreage ordinance, just keep that in mind and try to make it as small as you possibly can, because I'd really like to keep my rooster.
I just got a question. Is there an ordinance, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I thought there was an ordinance for distance for roosters, or am I wrong on that?
What?
I thought there was an ordinance on a distance from a property line on roosters. And maybe I'm wrong. I thought there was when I looked it up years ago, but that was just my question, if you guys knew or not.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Rory, were you done with your comments? Okay. Jim, did you have anything to add to the conversation?
Only that in any community, it's very difficult to satisfy everybody, and we live in a world of rules and regulations now. And I'm in a business that's very highly regulated, and they drive me crazy every day.
So why be a part of that then? Why continue it?
We're our own community.
If
We
you're-
don't overregulate, that's why it's a township.
If you're in the plumbing business, you get it regulated.
I'm a commercial contractor. I'm regulated all the time.
So you're
still not gonna force everybody else to follow what I
So,
do.
so you understand.
But you're regulating food. Essentially, you're regulating food. Chickens are a source of food, you're regulating food. If there's food shortages, you're not gonna have people complying to this. I guarantee that.
Well, also in a community, you need rules for the safety of the people involved. It's just can't be helped.
What's unsafe about it?
The killer chickens that are running loose in Wynwood.
All right, that's enough.
I'm sorry.
Nancy, any comments?
No.
All righty. Oh.
I guess after hearing all this and just coming in, I'm pretty new in this position here. I would not feel comfortable voting to pass this. If this goes to a vote right now, this ordinance, because I feel like I'm ignorant about the life of people that have chickens and all that. So I would, if it goes to a vote tonight, I'd have this vote. Not that I wouldn't vote for it later, but I just feel like I don't know enough. I've learned a lot.
I implore you to please research how hard it is to rehome. You can't rehome hens. You can't rehome roosters. If this is enforced, some people will have to slaughter their pets, and I don't care how dramatic that sounds, it's the truth. And it's not okay.
Well, I mean, I think there's gotta be some rules to living. I mean, I live on a lake, I've got rules on any, I can't put a doghouse on my lot because I'm exceeding, gonna exceed the coverage of my property,
Were
but.
the rules there when you bought the home?
But I'm sorry, what was that? Was it Carol? What did you say, a rehome?
Me?
Yeah.
I was talking to the guy right here. who
He
came
couldn't like
about
home.
it. He's gone.
Oh, and he's not here listening to Tossa with chickens. Okay.
You should have brought popcorn.
You're staying way beyond your time. Were those rules and laws there when you bought the home?
Yes,
So you were
and that's
aware.
an issue for me too,
Right.
with the grandfathering in and that thing, that when that came up, that's something I have question on. I think there has to be rules. I just, right now, like I say, I'm ignorant
I don't know enough to where I would be comfortable passing this, and affecting all these people's lives without knowing. But maybe when I get more educated, maybe I will think this is the least worst thing to do. I don't know, but I'm just saying what I know, what I've learned tonight, and what I know.
Okay. Nancy, you had a comment?
Carol, when is the next board meeting?
Next Tuesday.
Okay, all of you should go to the board meeting and give them because they're the ones that directed us.
Tuesday at 7 p.m.?
Six.
I'm out of town.
And this is gonna be on the agenda?
No.
Colin, put it on.
Oh, so then why?
It depends on the planning commission.
Will they let us talk?
Oh, see, they just want us to show
Who do we
I
talk
don't
to?
think they will open the floor as much as we did tonight. They usually do not. But Carol's a board member, I can speak for that. But they usually keep the discussion amongst board members.
Just a minute. What will happen is that when the planning commission sends this forward to the board, then it will be discussed at the board level. But until then, it will not be. And I don't know when they're gonna send it forward.
Quick question.
Very good.
What is your procedure then for this community to put this issue on the board meeting for open discussion?
Well, they will be happy to, I don't know if they'll be happy, but they will talk about it when the planning and zoning, this is how it works. Planning and zoning commission makes an ordinance or recommends an ordinance to the town board. This is a recommending board. Then it goes to the board and then it's on the agenda.
But how do they
So,
know
I
when
guess
it's
I'm
on?
recommend that it
Because
doesn't
we
go
got a
any
big
further.
issue going
Hold
here
on,
that
hold
your
on.
community didn't know about. How does this group, those interested, force this issue before the board so that we can address it at that forum?
I think you can be
There
added
has to be
the
a way
agenda.
for the community to actually be heard at a board meeting. What is that procedure?
The
You put
board
yourself on
acts
the
on,
agenda.
the board acts on written complaints, and that's how complaints get started. You have to have a written complaint to the township, or maybe over the phone, I don't know.
If they wanna get on the agenda, don't they just call the office?
Hang on, just,
It's on the front page of the website, how they can get on the town board's agenda.
I don't know if you heard Pam, Matty, did you? It's on the front page of the website, how to get on the town board agenda. You can request to be on the agenda, and it's up to the clerk or town board whether you're placed on it, I believe. Is that correct, Pam?
Correct.
And again, the board directed planning and zoning to work on this months ago. We've been working on it, and with little or no input, and again, trying to make it good or comfortable enough for all of the people, the farmers and the new residents, the people that live on a quarter acre and the ones that got 40 acres. We're trying to work the middle ground, and that's what we intended to do. Now, the audience here tonight sounds like you wanted to scrap all the ordinances. That's not gonna happen. There will be ordinances, there will be restrictions and regulations of anybody's lifestyle. I don't care where you live or what you live. There's gonna be something, maybe not to do with chickens directly, but there will be something. We have ordinances that deal with livestock at large and livestock, and believe me, over the last many years and that, we've dealt with dog complaints till the cows come home. But it's just, this chicken thing is the latest controversy, I guess I would say, and it's gonna be resolved in some way. Lloyd has done a great deal of work to put this together to try to moderate between what the wants and the don't wants deal with, and what we can do. I don't know where it's going from here. We can direct the board or ask the board if they want to scrap the whole thing. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think that we need to proceed with some type of regulation, but I've got to wait and see what the planning commission wants to recommend to the board and what the board recommends to do with us. Because if the board says after probably reading or hearing about this meeting, they may say, "I forget the whole thing." But then we're going back to the Wild West, and that's not a good deal either, so. Lloyd, you put this together, do you have comments or any recommendations, suggestions?
I'm fairly new on the planning and zoning commission. when, I've been to several meetings, I was attending meetings before, I was on actually a member of the committee. The only, well, there was more than one complaint. I don't know exactly how many, but I know of 3 that were complaints, people coming to the meeting and complaining. We asked them to write a letter for a complaint, because an official complaint needs to be a written complaint. So, I don't know how many written complaints, but I know there's been several complaints in this meeting in the last couple of years. We're asked by the town board to write a ordinance on chickens because there have been complaints. At all the meetings that we've, and Joe has mentioned this, at all the meetings that we've, where we've been discussing chicken ordinances, we have had, I think, 0 people saying to, well, no, I shouldn't say that. We have had very few that were against the ordinance. There was several people wanted us to speed up the process because they wanted somehow to stop the noise. So, you know, all I can say is that we've been, like Joe said, we've been directed by the board to come up with some chicken ordinances. We researched all surrounding communities. Some of the communities have far more restrictive than what we've come up with. Very few have less restrictions than what we've come up with.
The majority's here. Everybody opposes it.
I think you said you had several complaints, but you also told us that the 32 of us do not equal the majority of 2,000 people. So do several, which several is 3, 5, whatever, complaints, does that overrule 32 people? I don't know.
If the majority of the complaints are about noise from roosters, why not keep your ordinances about roosters and leave all the rest of the stuff out of it? Why did we add all the extra stuff?
Well, Joe said he's owned chickens. Has anybody else here owned chickens before? Yes, no, yeah? I mean, roosters ain't that loud. I mean, a small dog barking is 1,000 times louder than a rooster. I mean, it's not even.
No.
What kind of roosters you got?
Roosters can be more annoying.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess my words are different than yours.
What does the planning commission wish to do from that? Tom Searing.
We've been directed by the town board to put something together, so we need to put something together.
Propose you throw it out.
What'd you say?
Propose you throw it out.
I don't think that's feasible.
No. Not gonna limit my food supply.
Maybe you should do an acreage for just roosters, acreage limit, keep it in the denser populated areas.
Max 200 chickens.
Maybe write up something specific about rooster noise ordinance so it's more enforceable than the general one.
The complaints, just the noise, is that what people complain about? The
There are
rooster
private
noise?
complaints we don't see.
The noise, the smell, property lines, if there, chicken coops are right against the property lines. That's some of the issues that have came up. So it isn't just the roosters, there's other things about placement of coops and chickens at large, chickens roaming around the neighborhood and stuff. I mean, there's more than one complaint.
Yeah, it should be like cats and dogs. They don't get just to run in everybody else's yard.
There's an ordinance on dogs, there's not an ordinance on chickens. That's what we're
But this is
But
limiting
again, a
the
lot of
number
that
of
can
chickens,
be
not what it
answered by good husbandry.
It does,
And
if you read
information.
the ordinance, it does say they need to be maintained on your property, that will run, they need to be fenced in. That is included in the ordinance package, that as far as containment, I believe, isn't it, Lloyd? It was.
Yes.
There is a existing ordinance about animals at large.
Right.
That would cover a chicken going onto a neighbor's yard. It basically doesn't allow that.
I have a question about just the process. So if you vote on this tonight, and would it go before the board at the next meeting, so that people would then know to go to that meeting if they have something that they wanna contribute? Is that how that works?
Yes.
Pretty much, a recommendation from here would go to the board and see if they want to adopt it or kick it back to us one way or the other. 'Cause the planning commission is responsible for formulating or getting ordinances put together, and that's what we've been trying to do, and we've done it in different issues. This one turned out to be a little tougher. Do we want to just tell the town board we're going to continue to work on it, or are we happy with the stuff the way it sits? I think that we, after the input from the night, we may want to look into other aspects of this ordinance.
Yep.
And spend some time, again, I want you to do all the homework, Lloyd, but all of us look into what we can do. And
Somebody qualified.
no, it's up to the planning commission now, I'm not taking anything from the floor.
I agree with Joe, and I actually think you guys should come up with, I mean, take some of the numbers. If you think, 6 chickens, I mean, I don't know. Chickens, that's one thing I don't really know and don't pretend to know everything about them, but figure out what it is you guys can live with for chickens, and then if you have those numbers, and then at least it's something we can start with. I mean, Lloyd did spend a ton of time going to other townships, they all did it, so, I mean, it wasn't like he just dreamed these numbers up. But nobody gave him any input either, so I feel like if you guys would help with the numbers, maybe come back to whoever you gotta get them to, Joe, I don't even know who it would be.
Email it to the township, anything,
Right.
concerns or whatever, email it, that's where the complaints come from, is through the office. Email it to the township, send it through that, it'll go through channels and then feedback to the planning and zoning in an appropriate manner, an orderly manner, because to come here and back and forth, we're not gaining a whole lot. But
Just to say,
concerns
throw it
of
away.
writing, it would make more impact with us and the town board and show the concerns of more than just a couple complaints. I guess that's my attitude on this thing.
I think
Any other
that's-
comments from the planning and zoning? I'm not taking from the floor anymore, we're gonna wrap this up. Tom, you're done? We just recommend to the town board, we keep working on it, look for some input until we get further development on it.
Specific numbers, email it.
What do you mean specific numbers?
We have specific numbers as to the chickens now. What do they want?
Right,
That's what I
any
mean,
concerns,
they should-
chickens, roosters, whatever concerns you have, send them forward to the township through the website, email, send it through, you can send it to planning and zoning. But if you send it to me, to my email and that there, I'll just forward it to the township anyway, so send it to the office. And then they can distribute it to the appropriate parties, and then the town board will be aware of what your concerns are too. Because otherwise, I got an email from somebody, but I don't know if the office got it or not. Sometimes I forward them, sometimes I don't bother, because it's just not worth sending. So, but if you send it to the office, they can distribute it in an appropriate manner, the complaints, and maybe they can be handled within the office, within the administration in the office, some of this stuff. And again, the township deals with violations based on complaints. And they're not gonna go out searching for violations. That isn't a practice the township has done. But if you have concerns about this proposed ordinance and things you'd like to see included with it, put it in writing, get it to the township, and then we can gather it together and maybe get something worthwhile accomplished. The fact of it, throwing this whole thing out, I don't believe that will happen. There will be some type of ordinance put in of some kind. How it turns out depends on what all the input is.
I would say add to that, that instead of all of you sending your emails in, you get together as a group and come to some decisions on what you all think is the right thing to do, and then send that in.
everybody here doesn't think there should be an ordinance, so we'll shelf it.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like you said, get numbers, like, how many chickens can you feasibly have on your property? You know, what do you
Okay.
need to feed your family and all that? But instead of sending 40 emails to the city, why don't you talk amongst yourselves and maybe just send 2 or 3 that have all those numbers in it? And what you think is reasonable.
Regulation Committee, public Facebook page.
All right, that's enough. You go through whatever you want on your own. Okay, next item of business, new business. None. Staff and administrative reports. I guess Susan, back to you.
I have no new updates, no new land use applications.
Nothing really cooking and,
Nothing cooking.
okay. No, plats in the works or variances coming
Nope,
up, you know?
nope, just the one that was addressed tonight, that was good. Actually, I'm sorry, we do have an admin subdivision on Fawn Lake, which should hopefully wrap up soon,
It's
and
coming
then
up, yeah.
that'll go to rezone.
Yeah.
And I make a motion, we adjourn for the night.
There's a motion, is there a second? Moved and seconded by Rory, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all.